Good evening, Trailmen. This is Troopmaster Brandon, the training chairman for the Kentucky-Anna area in the state of Kentucky and southern Indiana. The last time we met, we discussed clothing. So I'm going to do a quick recap on what you should be wearing for clothing because it is part of your day pack and it is part of your adventure as you go out. And then we're going to break down the day pack, the types of day packs, what you're going to put in the day pack, and how to pack the day pack so it's most useful when you get out on your adventure. So first, we're going to talk about clothing. Of course, I'm taping inside tonight, so I've got regular Trail Life uniform on. I've got my shirt and my pants. Since we are talking about the winter during our Polar Vortex meetings, this is not what I would wear on an outdoor adventure. The first thing you're going to want to remember on that is that you're going to pack in layers. The reason I'm going over this is because it's going to be important later on, as one of our points is going to be extra clothing. So you're going to pack and wear layers. Of course, you're going to need a good pair of warm socks. You're going to need a thin base layer that is going to be a wicking material to pull off any sweat while you're on your adventure. Those were my pants. And you're also going to have a shirt. Then I would wear my wicking shirt over top that, as well as my pants. I'm going to have a mid layer that's going to keep me warm and also going to be a thermal layer for me. And then I'm going to have my shell. As you can see, I'm going to wear layers so that throughout the day, if I do get warm, I can go ahead and shed layers to make sure that I'm not sweating because when we sweat and later on we get cool, it can cause ice, it can cause hypothermia, it can cause problems with your heat exchange. You're also going to wear some kind of ear protection for your head, as well as a hat, which is going to be important as we talk about day packs as well. Good pair of warm gloves, and some kind of scarf or head wrap that you're going to wear as well. Just a quick recap of last week's session on clothing to make sure that you're understanding the things that you're going to be wearing underneath your day pack, and it's also going to come into play with our extra clothing section of our day pack. So, as you can see, I've got a couple of different day packs here on my right, and my day pack that I've gone ahead and packed here on my left. So the day packs that I have here, first off is a fanny pack or a waist pack. It's a smaller pack than a normal backpack, probably about half or a third of the size. I like this when I'm going on shorter hikes, when I don't plan on being out as long. I also like this more in the summertime. This is not my preferred winter pack, because my clothing is going to be larger and a few of the items that I might take on a winter hike or day hike or camp out are not going to quite fit into this pack, and you're going to see that here in a second. But it is definitely an option for a day pack, just not the best option for a winter day pack. The second pack I have here is a smaller backpack. It's more of a bladder style backpack where you're going to use a water bladder instead of a regular canteen or water bottle. It's got a special opening here in the top for your water. It's got straps here on the shoulders for your water bladder. And it has a special pouch and strap on the inside to hold your water bladder. Again, this is great for spring and fall, as well as summer hiking when you're not taking as thick of clothing. It is also great in the winter because it's not going to be so heavy since you do have so many layers on, but it also inhibits you as far as the amount of gear that you can take if you're going to be out longer, and the amount of gear and the quantity of gear that you can take if you're planning on making sure that you're fully prepared for anything that happens. But it is a good option, and depending on the type of clothing you're going to wear, whether or not you might be a more traditional gear ideology or an ultralight ideology. If you're ultralight, this may work better for you, but it is definitely better suited for the warmer months. As you can see, the last pack that I have here, as far as a different style pack that you have, is more of a traditional backpacking backpack with a day pack attached. And I know we're talking about day packs in general, but this is going to give you a larger size. It's 35 liters plus a 15-liter day pack. So it gives you a total of 50 liters. This is going to be great for a weekend, but it can also allow you a little bit more space. The thing I like about this for a day pack is it is going to have a better waist belt on it to distribute your weight while you're hiking if you are going on a longer day hike. And it's got a nicer set of straps on it with padding, as well as a built-in whistle that is important for you to carry anyway. It's got some special straps here on the top, as well as the bottom and the sides, to make sure that you've got your pack riding exactly where you want. In all, this is a great pack to choose for a winter packing. Like I said before, because of the amount of gear that you might be taking, the thickness and the heaviness of some of the gear you might be taking, especially in the extra clothes category. But this is definitely a good contender, especially for a winter day pack. So finally, we get to the day pack that I have chosen, which is going to be right here. It is a smaller backpack style day pack. This one did not fully pack up, so I do still have some room in this pack. The thing I like about this pack that I've had for 10 or 15 years is that this one comes with a built-in rain system for the pack itself. It is about a 32 liter, I believe, when it's all packed up. So it's similar in size to the traditional backpack, but it is definitely more of a day pack style. And this is the one that I've chosen to show you all for the mock pack that I would take on a winter day hike or a winter, maybe even weekend, longer day hike, that kind of thing. So before we get into this pack, I do want to show you a couple of places of where I got some information and focus on, so you guys can look at this later as far as where you're getting your packing list for your day pack. I've got both Trailman handbooks here. The information that I'm going to be going over tonight can be found in either. The first, which is the original edition of the Trailman's Handbook, can be found on page 120. The basic essentials list, that's the way this is listed here. We can also find a list of these items in the camping guide. It can be found in the equipment section here. This lists it as the 10 essentials, which is the actual more common term for these items that you're going to be carrying in your backpack. This list goes all the way back to the 1930s with a group called the Mountaineers. They're the ones who originally created the list of the 10 essentials. The last place where you can find the information about this is going to be in the new second printing of the Trailman Handbook. It's going to be on page 308 in the Patrol Leader's Guidebook. The information found here is going to be a more standard backpacking list or camping list. It's not going to break it down into 10 simple items. This is going to be more gear for the patrol, but it is found there. So let's take a look at our backpack. We're going to break this down by each item that you're going to need to have in there. First things first is going to be your knife. You should always be carrying some sort of pocket knife with you. Now, I always carry 2 pocket knives. I have a pocket knife in my bag, and then I always have my multi-tool on my belt. So I'm going to have 2 cutting tools, and you may even add on this one a hatchet or a saw, depending on your particular situation. But at bare minimum, in a day pack for a day hiking situation, especially in the winter, you're going to need some sort of cutting tool. Most commonly is going to be your pocket knife. The second thing, and probably the next obvious thing, is going to be your first aid kit. The first aid kit is going to be tailored specifically to your situation. My first aid kit is very basic. I always carry a set of nail clippers, which can also be used as an impromptu cutting tool. I always carry a high alcohol content hand sanitizer in there, both for sanitizing my hands and also for a backup fire lighting device. I'm going to carry chapstick, which is super important during the winter time to make sure that you're keeping both your hands moisturized, your lips moisturized, your face moisturized, to make sure that the dry air that you're going to encounter in the winter is not breaking you out and causing other first aid issues. I always carry a small thing of pain medication, as well as alcohol swabs, a variety of bandages, gauze pad, and make sure that you have some triple antibiotic ointments. The first aid kit is the second item right after your cutting tool. It can be catered to your specific situation. You want to make sure that if you do have any specific allergies or medical ailments, needing an inhaler, needing an EpiPen, something like that, make sure those are in your first aid kit. Your first aid kit may need to be a little bit larger than mine. I don't need to carry anything specific like that with me. But the other thing you could add to this during the wintertime are hand warmers. Those may be chemical hand warmers. Those may be a fuel type hand warmer that you can carry in your pocket. But make sure you add those in case that's something you're planning on being out a little longer. Depending on how large your pack is or how heavy you want your pack to be, you can also carry those to make sure that you've got some backups. The next item on the list is going to be water. You always want to make sure this is extra water in addition to the other water that you might be carrying. You might have a couple extra bottles of water in addition to a bladder, or you might have 3 or 4 bottles of water in general. But you do want to make sure you're taking more water than you're expecting to need, especially if you're going to be in an area where there may not be as many water options. Remember that in the winter, you want to take extra water because you're going to be dealing with situations like ice and snow. So you may have to create fire in order to break down your water from ice or snow. But make sure that you're taking at least 2, if not 3 bottles of water. That's probably going to be at least 2 liters of water or more, depending on the length of your hike or the length of the time that you're going to be out on adventure. The next item on the list is going to be a compass. Your compass may look a little bit different than mine. This is a lens-static compass. It is more going to be for navigation and orienteering at a higher level. Yours may be a basic base plate compass. It may be a small compass on top of your hiking stick. It may be something that dangles down from your jacket. You definitely could have a couple of options for the compass to make sure. The one thing that you want to make sure that you're not doing is focusing on having a compass or a GPS system on your phone. As you've probably heard many, many times, a phone is a great backup, but it's not a great first choice because it does have to have a battery. It can break at any time. You may not have signal at any time, depending on your situation. And you may lose access to those satellites and things like that. So always have your compass, be prepared to use it, and always have a map as well. That's the other item on the fourth thing. Trail food is the next thing on the list. I've got a couple of cups of trail mix here, as well as some nuts that are high in protein, and some granola bars or multi-grain bars. These items are going to help keep you energized during your trip. The other thing that I've added that I like to carry specifically, especially during the winter time when there's a higher risk of maybe you getting stranded, maybe snow comes in. Some of you folks may be up in the Ohio area, up in Michigan, or in the northern parts of Illinois or Indiana, where you do get a lot of snow during the wintertime. If you do get snowed in and you have to spend the night out, you're going to want to make sure you have a way to get more water and maybe cook some food that you might not be expecting on your day hike. The items that I've got in this here are going to be my pot, my fuel, and a couple packets of oatmeal to make sure that if I do have to spend an overnight out, that I've got something hot to eat to warm me up and keep my body temperature high at nighttime. The other item that I am going to have in my backpack is going to be the stove that goes along with this. It's a lightweight stove. It's very small and holds the cup very well. The next thing on the list is going to be fire making tools. I always carry a lighter. Standard Bic lighter is something that's going to be very easy to use and is going to make sure that you're not going to leak any of your fuel out because it has a completely enclosed fuel cell. I always carry matches. The other item that I'm going to carry is a fire starting device. This here is cotton lint from my dryer, wrapped in stuffed in a toilet paper tube and then wrapped with wax paper. This is going to be an easy fire starting device, especially if it's been wet outside or I can't find any dry, dead tinder or kindling. It'll help me get a fire started very quickly. All of this packs nicely into my kit that I'm going to have all my food in my pocket. One thing that is definitely overlooked during the winter time is sun protection. You may think it's not hot outside. Why do I need sun protection? But the sun can be as bad, if not worse, during the winter, especially if you're in a situation where there is snowfall or ice on the ground. So a good set of sunglasses. One of the things that your winter first aid kit is going to need to have is sunscreen. Most people think of this as a summer item, but it is definitely just as much of a winter item. You're going to want to make sure that you cover all exposed areas of your skin with a sunscreen, high SPF, to make sure that any sun that is being kicked up off of the snow and ice is blocked by that sunscreen to make sure you're not getting any exposure problems related to sun and UV rays. You're going to want to make sure you have a nice hat. This is a good bucket hat. It's going to cover your ears to protect them. The other type of hat, like we talked about before, is going to be a thermal cap to make sure your ears are covered and protected as well. The next item is going to be clothing. You're going to want to make sure that you have one extra item of each piece of your clothing, especially your socks, your underwear, your undershirt, your pants, your regular shirt, and maybe even your thermal underwear. This is one of the reasons why a larger pack is more important in the wintertime, because not all of these items may fit in a smaller hip style or hydration pack style bag. Clothing is extremely important. You're going to want to make sure that you put it in a Ziploc bag to make sure that any rain that you might get protects your clothing. It does no good to take extra clothing if it's just as wet as the clothing that you have on. And in case that you fall into a stream at a crossing or lay your pack down in the snow and don't have a waterproof cover on it, this is going to protect your extra clothing. One of the other items that you're going to need is going to be your headlamp. Now, I always carry two types of candling devices with me. First is a headlamp. That way I have my hands useful, especially when I'm hiking. I use trekking poles at nighttime when I'm setting up my shelter, or if I'm lost and I'm looking at a map, a headlamp works a lot better. But I always carry a backup flashlight on my hip belt as well. One of the last items on our list is going to be my rain gear. I'm not going to take this completely out, but I do have a full set of uppers and lowers in this bag. So I've got a jacket with a hood as well as a pair of pants. They are vinyl. They are completely waterproof. And this would be in addition to my outer layer that I showed you before that I'm going to wear during the winter. I could choose to use just my rain jacket along with my smaller and lighter weight hooded jacket so that I'm not creating sweat and things like that as I'm hiking. One of the last items that is probably extremely important in the winter is going to be a thermal blanket or a space blanket. or an emergency blanket, depending on where you're from. You might call it something different. This is going to protect you, especially if you have to end up staying the night out in the wilderness and you weren't planning on it. Some people might also put an emergency shelter, a tarp, or a large trash bag with this that would create a emergency shelter to protect you from the elements if you were caught out in a snowstorm, in a rainstorm, or just out in the wilderness overnight when you weren't expecting because you got lost. This is a small repair kit that I also carry in my bag. It's going to have duct tape on the outside as well as a number of items on the inside to repair my gear if they are damaged in the field. It is always important to carry anything that you might need: sewing needles, thread, patches, adhesive patches that can be applied directly to your items. All you're thinking about as far as repairing your gear in the field is a quick fix to make sure that it's just as useful as when you took it out in the first place. You're not looking for a permanent fix in the field. This is Troopmaster Brandon with the Polar Vortex section Daypacks. Keep it on.